This is Daily Gains. Welcome back.
I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Dave. It's time to get it in. Let's get going. James 2:2. For if a man wearing a gold ring and fine clothing comes into your assembly, and a poor man in shabby clothes also comes in, come. There you go.
Stay tuned. And
for the second half.
God wants you to do. All right, so here's my takeaway here. We have to be discerning, and we have to be wise as we perceive the people that are around us. And I think the context here is very specifically within the gathering of the church. But I think the application can be broadened out. As I'm interacting with people, you and I know where this verse is heading.
Mm-hmm.
We know what's about to be said here.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes out of the context that came just before this, again, because James didn't split this at chapter 2, where he said, let the rich man boast in his humiliation, let the poor man boast in his exaltation. There's a paying attention here that James is calling us to, that I do think goes back to Jesus as he was talking in the Sermon on the Mount about where blessing comes from and the trust that we have in God. You know, this is parroted in the Old Testament, I think in 1 Samuel, where Samuel is going to Jesse and he's looking over Jesse's sons. And if you're familiar with the story, Jesse lines up all of his boys, and Samuel comes through, and God's like, no, it's not the good, tall, good-looking one. No, it's not the second born who's smart and funny and as charismatic. No, it's not the third one with the really good business acumen. And so Samuel gets to the end, and it's none of Jesse's sons. And God's like, yeah, no, it's one of his sons. And Samuel goes to Jesse and says, is this everyone? And Jesse's like, no, little Davey's out in the field taking care of the sheep. And Samuel says, okay, go call him. We're going to wait here. We're not going to have dinner. We're not even going to have the hors d'oeuvres. We're going to wait for your son to get here. And when David get there, God says to Samuel, get up and anoint him. He's the king. And the point here, and it's made explicit in the text, is God looks on the heart while man looks at the outside. And Jesus talking in the Sermon on the Mount is saying, you don't need to worry about where your food's going to come from, where your clothes are coming from. God takes care of these things. God takes care of these things that we look at and we judge people by them. And so I think James is looking here and he's saying, be careful, be judicious as you're interacting with people, yes, specifically in church, but in the wider context of your life. Stop and ask yourself, am I looking at the right thing? That's the question that we're confronted here in this verse. And that's a takeaway for here.
I fully agree. And I'd even say, because we're in the assembly, am I looking at the heart as though God looks at it? And I know that I don't have the spiritual goggles to see the heart as God sees them, but I do get to see the actions and the way they engage, and often can reconcile, like, hey, this woman gave everything she had. This Pharisee came and prayed out of his own selfishness. I can see certain things that should help me understand the heart better than, as you stated, Jared, the clothing. So I definitely agree.
I will say this, Dave will always be better dressed than me. But both of us are cuddly. So, if you want to give either of us a hug, we will give you a better hug back. That's my promise. You can take that to the bank this day, and we'll see you this afternoon. Ba-ba-da-da-da